You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Wisdom's Daughter. I'm here in the building with James Mack, your man on the street. Today, we're talking about the city of Atlanta. A lot has been going on in Atlanta. They seem to have been plagued with a series of violent incidents following the water main break on last week, including a deadly hijacking, leading police on a high-speed chase just yesterday. A shooting also occurred in a downtown Atlanta food court, and Donald Trump and his Republican constituents are not happy about the Hunter Biden verdict. All this and more, but before we get started, James has a few shout-outs. James?
Hey, Wisdom, how are you? And how are you to all of our wonderful listeners? I just wanted to give a shout out to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. She is battling an illness and have a health challenge, and our thoughts and our prayers are with her. And also, I'd like to say hello to Toya on the 5th floor of Baptist East Hospital, her and her wonderful co-workers that have been taking care of their wonderful patients. Thank you for being a wonderful listener.
Awesome. And we appreciate all those of you who are listening, tuning in to 92.7, those of you who are listening on other streaming services, platforms, including YouTube. All right, so 4 people were injured Tuesday afternoon in a shooting at a food court in downtown Atlanta, reported by WSB-TV. Mayor Andre Dickens said in a social media post that the incident happened at the Peachtree Center food court, citing a note to Peachtree Center residents that shots were fired at the hub. Police said that 4 people were injured, but they were alert, conscious, and breathing after the shooting. One of the 4 people who were shot is believed to be the suspect, authorities stated, and it's not immediately clear what sparked the shooting. However, witnesses said that they heard gunshots. One witness said that he and his girlfriend had just left the passport office in the area when they heard a shot, and at first he thought someone had dropped something. Says, then I hear another shot and another shot and another shot, and I see people scattering and running all around. And so at the time that it was reporting as an active shooter incident. Walker said officers exchanged gunshots with the shooter, although police did not immediately confirm that officers were involved in the shooting. They described the scene as open and active on Tuesday, saying that officers were working to determine the crisis surrounding the incident. Peachtree Center includes 6 high-rise buildings, and it bills itself kind of as an office, retail, kind of a dining destination, and it is in the heart of downtown Atlanta. Now, that was yesterday afternoon, and on the same day, a gunman hijacked a city bus in Atlanta, a commuter bus at that, during rush hour. Passengers were frantically texting their loved ones, not knowing if they were going to survive the incident. James, it was something akin to the movie Speed. I mean, it took place across multiple jurisdictions. This gunman took the police on a high-speed chase. So CNN has also picked up the story, stating that Atlanta police had barely finished the briefing the community about the shooting inside the food court that we just talked about, when calls began to come in about a bus hijacking. Can you imagine you're doing a press conference about an active shooter or shooting in the community at a food court, okay? Not the place that you would expect to encounter an active shooter. And then as you're doing that, calls are coming in about a bus being hijacked. And so a gunman had hijacked a commuter bus with 17 people inside, and shot one of them. Actually, one of the passengers was shot with his own firearm. Interesting. Shot with his own firearm. And so others were frantically texting their loved ones, calling 911 for help. I mean, several 911 calls went out. And as police arrived on the scene, they tried to confront the gunman, who was identified as 39-year-old felon Joseph Greer. The suspect held the bus driver at gunpoint and forced him to speed away, according to the Atlanta police chief. The ensuing rush hour police chase zigzag across the highway lanes. I mean, I saw the video that the bus was running cars off the road, literally. The highway had cars trying to get out of the way, and I mean, it was as if the bus was acting like a bowling ball, and that these cars were bowling pins. And so authorities were led on a chase across at least two counties, at times, as I said, careening into other cars, crossing into opposing traffic. Inside, a passenger stayed on the line with 911, allowing authorities to kind of hear the commotion and hear what was going on. Mayor Dickens said that the chaos sounded like a movie scene, as the suspect had a gun to the head of the driver, saying, "Don't stop this bus or else worse will happen." Very, very frightening. The bus finally came to a halt on a tree-lined street in a suburb of Stone Mountain. Passengers steamed out, and Greer was arrested without incident. The passenger who was shot was taken to a local hospital, and unfortunately, he lost his life at that hospital. He did not survive. And so the victim's identity is going to be released after the family is notified. So we don't know at this time who the victim is. But the suspect is facing a slew of charges in connection to this incident, according to jail records. He is facing 1 count of unaliving, 14 counts of kidnapping, 13 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of first-degree hijacking of a motor vehicle, 1 count of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, 1 count of possession of a firearm or knife during the commission or attempt to commit certain felonies. And we've learned that he has 19 prior felony convictions. This is was reported by Atlanta PD. And they don't really have too many more details other than that. And we don't know if the man has an attorney, but he is certainly going to need one. This was a very scary incident. Can you imagine you're on a bus on your way home from work, and someone pulls out a gun or takes a gun from another passenger and hijacks your bus and holds everyone hostage? I couldn't imagine what these passengers were going through, James.
Actually, if you look at what's going on in most major cities, and our thoughts also, and our thoughts and prayers are with those people that have been experienced this tremendous act of a horrific act of violence. That's not just, I wouldn't call it a plague of violence, but there's been a lot of things going on with weapons violence and gun violence. And there has to be something done. I think that there are too many guns on the street, too much access to guns on the street. Now, I'm not against persons having proper weapons and proper training to do so, but to hear this and to see the horrific the incident that happened on yesterday, and can you imagine you're on the bus and all of a sudden a person gets on or what have you, and you got gunfire going on, and is it safe anywhere? Some people would say. I would say the same thing. I mean, do we have to all arm ourselves like the Wild West and Wyatt Earp and the Lone Ranger, or the Wild Wild West, or whatever? This is the Wild East, as they say. No offense to the city, the great city of Atlanta, but Atlanta being a travel destination for a lot of people, a lot of the kids are out of school, college kids are out of school, and it's a wonderful place to visit. I suggest everybody to go visit, but also with the upcoming summer months, it concerns me because idle time, as they say, is the devil's workshop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some other details that came out is they said that the guy who got on the bus seemed kind of crazy. This is someone who was recounting the story, a witness. He was being disruptive. He was kind of getting on people's nerves. This is actually what is taught in active shooter response training is when you see someone getting agitated, when you see, some of kind of these behaviors, it's kind of giving you a signal that there's a potential for an escalation in violence. So the witness said that he was engaging with passengers. He got into a fight with one of them, a male who pulled a gun, according to the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And Greer, the suspect, took the gun from the passenger and began threatening the passengers with it. And so interesting, this is not a man who got onto this bus with the intent to take the bus hostage. He got into it with another passenger who was carrying a firearm. He disarmed that passenger and turned the firearm on those who were on the bus. And so he began threatening the passengers, according to the GBI news release. And he then shot the passenger that he got into an altercation with and ordered the driver of the bus to flee the scene while threatening the passengers. This happened around 4:30 p.m. yesterday. And so, as I said, police were just coming in from and still, in some ways, dealing with the shooting that occurred at the food court when this call comes in from multiple passengers reporting that a gunman is holding a bus hostage on Ivan Allen Boulevard, for those of you who are listening from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And that there were multiple shots fired, and then the line kind of went silent. And so, I can only imagine the panic that law enforcement, must have been, or concern, I should say, not so much panic, that they must have been experiencing, knowing that that line went silent. And so the husband urged his wife to get off the phone in case, the shooter thought that she was calling 911. He was fearful that she might get shot next. So he says, I told her, put the phone down, just put it away and just be still. Well, soon after that, another call came in from a family member of a passenger who had texted him that the bus had been hijacked. An officer arrived at the scene within about a minute of the first 911 call and tried to confront the suspect, who then forced the bus driver to drive off. So this is just some more details about what happened here. A third 911 call comes in, this time from another passenger who actually stayed on the line throughout the entire chase, allowing the dispatchers to feed information to several law enforcement agencies involved in the pursuit. And I do believe that that was quite helpful to them being able to bring this bus to a stop and to apprehend the suspect. The bus led a fleet of law enforcement vehicles along Atlanta's Interstate I-85 as rush hour commuters sped by. It crossed again through several suburban areas before coming to a stop in the city of Stone Mountain. So I'm not sure exactly where this bus was originally headed, but the bus was stopped ultimately. And those of you who are watching on Facebook, you can see on the screen pictures from the scene when the bus was finally stopped. And so officers were able to disable that vehicle using several tactics, including positioning an armored vehicle at one of its sides, which prevented the vehicle from being able to kind of drive in that direction. So it took an armored truck to stop this bus. It's unclear whether the driver or either drivers were hurt, but as we said, there is one person who unfortunately lost their life in this incident, and that was the person who got into the altercation with the suspect and was ultimately shot by him. So yeah, I mean, it is very frightening. Just with a number of other active shooter incidents that have happened in the Atlanta area, at banks, in the hospitals, in clinics, you don't expect to, when you get on your bus or your subway or whatever means of public transportation you're utilizing, you're not expecting it to turn into a hostage situation. So it's just a reminder that anything can happen at any time. And it's important that we are aware, that we're vigilant, and that we do whatever we can do to survive. So it was a Georgia State trooper who fired his rifle into the bus engine compartment. And again, that also was able to assist in bringing that bus to a halt on Hugh Howell Road in Stone Mountain. And as the bus came to a halt, the passengers were able to get off, and Greer was again arrested without incident. And this is going to be a huge investigation, because again, it crossed into several jurisdictions, not just the city of Atlanta. They said several counties. So you're talking about Fulton County, you're talking about Gwinnett County, potentially DeKalb County, depending on where this bus actually went. And so they've got some work to do ahead of them. Now I don't have the footage, but I did hear the mayor talking about his thoughts on gun violence and his concern that it is too easy in the state of Georgia for people to obtain a firearm. What do you think about gun laws? Are gun laws too loose in not just in the state of Georgia, but in our country?
Yes, they are. Access to weapons without proper background checks and making sure that those persons that do purchase these weapons are clearly vetted. The vetting process of most gun owners have not been done. You can get, some people say you can get a gun just like you could get a sandwich at a restaurant. And that is a dangerous position to be in. This is rush hour, and you're on the bus. And can you imagine on a public transportation? You're trying to get home. People are probably be trying to get to work or wherever their various destinations are, and all of a sudden this breaks out. And one of our listeners was asking, "Is it permissible? Can you carry?" I don't, and I'm not clear on the law in the state of Georgia, specifically any ordinances that Atlanta has as far as weapons being carried on public trans. Maybe you could elaborate on that. But I'd like to stick a pin there. But I'd like to also say that with these gun laws, and I'm not against guns or guns, weapons, or a person owning a weapon and being properly trained. I'm I'm really concerned that in this country we have a culture of people that feel that they can just use their weapons at any time. Youngsters as young as 12 and 13 years old carrying guns to school on the streets. The extended, but we can go into the extended magazines, all those other things. My mother would always say, "A bullet has no eyes," and
Mm.
it's just very sad that uh, people have to go through these things, especially transported on the bus. And I saw the footage from our affiliates and our different stations and our news services, how it looks like it was bumper cars or somebody I mean, this guy just drove into cars and oncoming traffic, and they were doing everything that they could to try to stop this person. And I mean, I can imagine the terror that people were going through. There really has to be something done, not just with the gun laws, but the attitude of people having the weapons that they have. And it's just amazing. And when you were talking about the food court issue, and I know that you're going to get more into that, it is really what is really happening. Is it the heat or is it the water or and I'm being facetious when I say that, but we are living in some challenging times and we have to, really be aware of our surroundings. And like I said, I was answering one of our listeners. I do not know about the regulations or any ordinances. Maybe you can fill in our audience on if you have any information on whether it's permissible to carry a weapon or whether the I think Georgia is a open carry state. I have no idea.
It
Maybe
is.
you can elaborate on that a little more.
It is. I mean, Georgia is an open carry state, and I mean this is public transportation, so there are certain buildings and certain areas where firearms are not permissible, such as hospitals, government buildings, banks, and things like that. So I'm not too. It's a great question, something that we'll have to follow up on. Not too certain about bringing it on the city bus, but what I will say is that I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was behind traveling on a city bus with this particular firearm. And it is an open carry state. People have the right to carry firearms. It's for their protection. It's just really, really unfortunate, for this victim that the suspect got into an altercation and retaliated by retrieving that weapon, from him. And if I'm reading the article correct, I thought I read somewhere where the victim actually pulled the gun on him first and he took it from him. But either way, just a very, very scary situation. The mayor said today has been a very active day, but let me be clear, we're talking about gun violence that is a result of too many people having guns in their hands. This is Mayor Dickens. He said at an evening news conference regarding the hijacking. He says, you're talking about people that should not have been on the street with guns. Dickens said that the spate of gun violence shows that something needs to be done, noting violent crime in the city has been decreasing. However, what we are seeing is another uptick in gun violence, in active shootings. And, any incidents involving a firearm can always escalate to a hostage situation, which is what we particularly saw. Now, you did ask about, is it because of the heat? Um, the city of Atlanta has been known, that they call it Hotlanta for a reason. I mean, it's been known to escalate and violence, and not just violence, but disaster incidents, from, power outages, the water main break that we saw, and just the number of things that the city will typically experience when the temperature heats up. So I don't have the data behind that, don't know the science in that, but I'm sure not just the city of Atlanta, I'm sure many major uh, uh, metropolitan cities do experience an uptick in violence and violent incidents, because it's warm. You have a lot more people on the street. And so, yeah, that's I again, we are, keeping the victim's family in our prayers, and those who went through this incident. I do hope that they get any counseling that's available to them, because I can imagine that there will be some repercussions with them having to deal with navigating public transportation, wondering, is this going to happen again? And so you're listening to 92.7 WKRA-FM. We thank you so much for listening, and we've got more stories coming to you in just a moment. You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration. And so, getting into other news in just a moment, we're going to talk about this Hunter Biden verdict. We had really great conversations yesterday relating to the Biden family and what impact this may potentially have on the upcoming election for Joe Biden. And, I said that I'm pretty sure that the Republicans are going to have something to say, and they absolutely do. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we do, there's another local Atlanta story that I want to share with you that those of you who are not local may not be as familiar with. And so there is a young man who was shot and unalived by police in Buckhead about 2 years ago. And finally, the body cam footage has been made available. The family has been fighting for the past 2 years to get the footage released. I'm not exactly sure why it took a whole 2 years for the footage to be released. But we're going to share some of that footage with you. We will stop at any point where we don't want to show too much or anything that will be triggering. But it's really interesting, because looking at the body cam footage, I have no choice but to ask, did this young man really have to lose his life at the hands of police? Could not something more have been done to preserve this young man's life, who the family is saying was having a mental health episode? Covering this story because what we're seeing more and more is that police officers are not necessarily trained or equipped to handle incidents of violence regarding those with mental health issues. And so oftentimes the mental health population is just kind of seen as a criminal, a disruptor, and unfortunately their lives are taken unnecessarily. And so we're going to go ahead and get into that, and I will share with you some audio from that video in just a moment. And so again, it is a local story. Some of you may be familiar with this story, but I just had to ask myself, why did it take 2 years to get body cam footage? I just don't understand why there isn't more transparency with the police in sharing information like that. So here's the video.
Video showing a man's death by police in Buckhead has finally been released. 2 years ago, Atlanta police shot and killed a 22-year-old inside the Fogo de Chao restaurant. Atlanta News First anchor Tori Cooper is live outside the restaurant right now. Tori, the family's already seen this video for the very first time, and they've been pushing for it to actually be released to the public.
They have, and it's hard to watch, Alan. Family members of Nigel Collins say that he was experiencing a mental health crisis at the time when this all happened, and that he wasn't posing a threat to anyone at this restaurant. But police tell a very different story. They say they were responding to a unruly customer, and they also say that Collins shot first, prompting them to shoot and kill him. Now, we are going to show you this video, and it's graphic, but we're not going to show you the most graphic parts of the video when police shoot Collins multiple times.
we have a guy in here with a gun, and he's acting very, very weird. He just has the gun on his belt, and he's yelling at employees.
Shortly after 7 p.m. on May 28th, 2022, 911 calls from employees inside the Fogo de Chao restaurant in Buckhead start flooding into the Atlanta Police Department.
He went inside of the bar now and grabbed a bottle of liquor and just helped himself, and is sitting there just drinking.
Shortly after that call, police show up and walk up to 22-year-old Nigel Collins, who's sitting at the bar.
Bro, what's going on?
After Collins is forced to the ground by police tell him to keep his hands off the gun in his waistband and to put his hands on his head.
Now, I'm going to pause right here for just a moment, because those of you who are listening via the radio, what you can't see is the minute this young man is approached by police, he puts his hands in front of him. He has his hands up. The police bring him to the ground. And then what you're going to see is the police draw on this young man. It looks like they potentially tase this young man. And then it is said that he reaches for his firearm. Let's continue.
It appears from the video that Collins grabs his gun while he's being tased by police.
Now, you heard that. So this young man's hands are still up. You can see in the video that even before he's tased by police, he's on the ground. His hands are in front of him. His hands are empty. He's tased by the police while he's laying on his back with his hands visible in front of him. After he's tased by police, he reaches for his firearm and attempts to flee the restaurant.
APD froze the video and added a red circle around what appears to be the gun in Collins' hand. Shortly after, Collins gets up and starts running through the restaurant with what appears to be his gun in his hand and is tackled at the door by a security guard. Right after, a gunshot is heard. Police say it was fired from Collins' weapon at the security guard. An officer then shoots Collins more than 5 times. Collins puts his hands by his side right where the gun was lying on the floor beside him. Police then shoot him 5 more times, and Collins dies shortly after.
And so this video is really hard to watch. Even listening to the audio, what you don't see is that this young man has his hands up. He's tased by the police. He does reach for his firearm. He's running out of the restaurant. He's almost to the door. The door is right in front of him, and then he gets tackled by a security guard who proceeds to shoot this young man more than 5 times, as we're told. It's also stated that a shot is fired from the weapon, although I don't believe any evidence of that has come forth. But what they do know for certain is that this security guard shot this young man more than 5 times, and they're stating that his arm rested to his side near his firearm. I can only imagine that after being shot 5 times, you probably wouldn't have much control of any of your limbs, including your arms. And so I know that they're trying to use that as an argument to say that he was reaching. Maybe he was, I don't know. But then he was shot 5 more times and unfortunately lost his life. And, you know, the question that I'm asking is that, did it have to happen this way? It just seems to be a recurring issue that when police officers of various races are dealing with the Black community, whether they have a knife in their hand, a gun in their hand, nothing in their hand, there always seems to be an excessive show of force. And I've seen a number of videos with people of other races who have come at police with a knife, who have spit at police, who have cursed them out, who have not complied, who have resisted arrest, and they still made it to the police station unharmed. Did this young man have to lose his life? That's what we're talking about, James.
My first reaction is overkill, and I'll get back to that later. One, are the rules that are set forth in open carry areas designed for, or were they designed for, people of color? And I have to deal with people of color because these incidents are happening to Black people. Let's just tell the truth. These things are happening to Black people. Selective arrest and prosecutions. Oh, I think that they look. How many times have I had to walk into an establishment, and people would say, "This person look," or you get that eye, or you go to the store and they looking at you like you're going to steal something. You have a pocket full of money. You have everything that you need just because you're Black. And people have that tendency, persons have that tendency to say, well, you look sneaky, or you're up to something. I was in the elevator just a couple of hours ago, and it was me and a white lady, and she sat there, and I had my t-shirt. I had a t-shirt on and jeans and everything, and this lady literally grabbed her purse, like, oh my God, I hope I didn't look that terrible or anything, but these stereotypes that's out there reflects upon the incidents that are happening. Here, this man comes in, and I think that if anything, the police were called. He's got a gun. Okay. I don't, and as I said, maybe you can fill us in to whether it's an open carry or what you can and where you can carry your weapon, etc. But they call the police. This guy's walking around. Next thing you know, he's drinking from the liquor from behind the bar. Now, that may have been an issue because you're not invited to go behind that workstation and get that bottle. And then on top of that, nobody really knew that this young man had any kind of mental illnesses or anything, or wasn't capable of handling a weapon. But the thing that really gets me, Wisdom, and I'm so sick and tired of going to funerals. I'm sick and tired, yes, in situations like this, giving thoughts and prayers when officers and most police officers are doing their job. I'm not saying that it's all of them, but this was overkill. He's already shot 5 times. Why do you have to shoot him 5 more times to make sure that I'm sure after 5 shots, he's not going anywhere? Exactly. Not going anywhere. Tased also, you tase me and then shoot me 5 times and come back and shoot me again. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. Those officers, the officer supervisors, need to come under review, not just under review, but there needs to be some prosecutions. If I, as a police officer, this is a hypothetical, but I'm going to say it. I, as a black police officer, encounter in the same situation a white fella. He's drinking, or he took some of the beer from behind there. He's clowning and acting a fool. I'm trying to get the situation at hand. He's got a gun. Sir, keep your hands in the air. The young man complied with his hands in the air. You shock him. Mental illness. Now, this goes back. If he did have a problem, what was his reaction to the stun gun? Bar none. I shock and I stun this guy. And not only did I stun the white guy, I shoot him. And then I'm not just saying that because of color, but it happens that way. What do you think that they would have done to me? Would I lost my job, my certification? Would I be out to hung dry? Because I've now unalived this person. I've subdued him with the stun gun. Shot this person 5 times. Made sure that this person is unalive. The security guard had him. Okay, but we got to show that, we follow procedures. There's nothing, no way in the world that you can explain this person being shot 10 times just to subdue one man. It's beyond me.
It is. And the question came from one of our listeners. Why could they have not disarmed him? Could they have disarmed him? And I believe that they absolutely could have disarmed him. They had already tased the young man. Yes, the young man did get up. He did run through the restaurant. The security guard literally tackles the young man and throws him to the floor as he is in his pursuit out of the restaurant. And so just to play it back, this young man is having a mental health crisis. People may or may not know. He gets into an altercation with other restaurant goers. He goes behind the counter, as you said, and he's grabbing the liquor and drinking it. And he now at this point, they can see, when I say they, I'm talking about the restaurant owner, the staff, those who are eating, the customers can see that this young man has a firearm on him, but he has not yet fired on anyone. He has not taken it off his hip. He hasn't done anything other than he's behind the counter, drinking the alcohol, and he's being disruptive and so forth. And so now the police are there. He's on the ground, hands up. They tase him. He takes off running with his weapon. The security guard takes him down, shoots him 5 times. Did you have to shoot him 5 times? The first bullet wasn't enough. Let me ask you, was the second bullet enough? What about the third bullet? Was the third bullet not enough? And if 3 bullets weren't enough, was the 4th bullet not? Why did it take 5 bullets? And then even if in the height of the situation, looking at it from both sides, the security guard, I don't know if he's ever fired his weapon before. I don't know what type of weapon he has. I don't know if it's the type of weapon where he literally has to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. But in the heat of the moment, even if he, in fear, his mind told him that he's reaching for this weapon again, why did you have to shoot him 5 more times? One more wouldn't have been enough. You couldn't have shot him in the leg, in the foot, in the hand. He was right on top of the young man. This young man probably was already losing his life when he was shot. The first 5 or 6, they said more than 5 times. They don't even have the number. The listener said he appears to have wanted the end game the way it was played out. He sat down with a bottle he took and waited for the police. Something bigger was going on. He was having a mental health crisis, and I think that there needs to be some more training done, with law enforcement to learn how to handle these situations better. I am remembering a young lady, and please forgive me, I'm not sure what state or city she was from, but it was a young lady who also, young lady who was having a mental health crisis. Her own family called the police on her. They put her in the back of the police car. She was not secured in a seatbelt. The door to the vehicle on one side had been left open. And I don't understand how these officers drove off, those of you who remember this story, and left this door open. But what ultimately happened is that as they took off down the road on the highway, the young lady fell out the vehicle and lost her life. Okay. So how many rules were broken then? She wasn't secured and they didn't lock the door. I don't know too many vehicles today, unless it's a vehicle that's more than 30 years old, that don't have a signal that you hear, an audible signal when the door is not closed all the way, an audible signal. Well, maybe not in the back seat. There's no signal for the seatbelt, but there should have been an audible signal. Most vehicles, when you leave the door open, the light stays on, right? And so this is just another incident where there's an excessive show of force when it comes to non-white communities, right? Because it's not just in the Black community. We've seen it in the Latino community. We've seen it in other communities, Black and brown communities, but just really sad. Anna Rondo said, she said, I always grab my purse when white people walk past me so they can see how it feels. Alexis said the same thing happened in Philly. Police unalived Walter Wallace. He was also having a mental health crisis, and the police unalived him in the street. And so it is just very, very unfortunate. It's really, really sad. And I'm hoping that we will come to a point where we realize that something needs to be done, that these are people, and that there are people that need help, that maybe this young man, it was a cry for help. And as you said, not all officers are the ones that are utilizing excessive force. I've seen examples where police officers have successfully de-escalated the situation, and that makes me maintain my faith in our law enforcement. But when you see situations like this, again, it's just incredibly sad, and it just happens way too often. And so, James, any final thoughts?
It breaks your heart. Wisdom, I have nephews. I have nieces. I have loved ones. I have brothers. I have friends. And it's I don't want to say it's an all-out attack, but this has to stop.
It feels that way. It feels that way sometimes.
I know that we're on the air and they say be professional, but as you were expounding and bringing the story, I couldn't help but to say and think, this young man probably had an episode. Okay, we'll take you out and make you pay for the liquor or whatever the case may be, or just put you out, trespass you. Okay, we don't want to see you here no more, because they saw a weapon. And because they saw this young man and maybe thought that, hey, the impressions that they give, we're immediately a danger. Why, white America, you don't have to be scared of Black people. Don't hold your purse when I go into the elevator. Speak and say hello. I'm a human. I'm not after what's in your purse. I probably got more money than, or have more than what's up in there. I'm not going to attack you or anything. Don't jump to conclusions when you see my nieces, my nephews. They may dress different than what your children or your relatives might dress as. Don't jump so quick, officers, that don't get so gun ho to a point before you find out what an issue is. And when you have the tools at your disposal, you have a taser. I went through. I'm still a first responder, but I had to go through some training, and that training was pepper spray or the taser. I didn't want to go through the taser, so they hit me with the pepper spray, and I couldn't see, and I was snotting and carrying on and hoo-doo-doo. But then the classmate that I was with got hit with the taser. This is all of 264 pounds of man, heavy built better than me. So y'all know already I ain't that built. And hit him with this thing. He shook for at least 3 or 4 minutes. He shook and didn't know. He said, "What happened?" They hit you with the taser. So there are mechanisms in place. Officers are on the scene. Not just that, your security personnel is there. Okay? And it took 10 gunshots. Please,
More.
folks, more. And to make it so bad, it took you this long, 2 years. 2 years to cover it up. We got to make sure it's covered up. We got to make sure all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I'm not saying my godmother. I'm going to say this. I'm going to shut up about this. My godmother, 30-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department, retired, and she told me. She said, "James, I never had to pull my weapon. I never had to shoot it. God blessed me enough that I didn't have to." She said, because there was ways of approaching and there were ways to diffuse situations. And I feel for officers that are really doing the job and out there protecting me. And if trouble happens, I want you to come. If I call 911, please come. Please come. Help us. Please do so. But please, take the time to evaluate the situations. It's not about training, because they're already getting training in the academy before they hit the streets. But I think that there's a culture of policing that's going on that is brewing in our country. And I feel for that young man's family. I feel for the officers also that are doing the job. I feel for them that they have to be involved in this. But it almost brought tears to my eyes, Wisdom. And I'm gonna. What a story!
Yeah.
What a story!
Yeah, it's just incredibly sad. So one of our listeners said we need stricter gun control laws. The NRA and many politicians feel they are entitled to bear arms due to the Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. Many states like Texas and Florida have loose laws. Then we have another listener who said, "Have you seen the clips about a black and white man? The black man couldn't see and grabs the white man's arm. They remove their arm. The white man did it, and they helped him." I think I know what she's referring to. I believe there is a viral TikTok where there's a gentleman who actually pretends to be blind, and what he will do is he will walk up to a white couple or a black couple or whoever and put his arm around them to see if they're going to help him or are they going to kind of push him away. And in the video that I saw, oftentimes, it was the someone in from the black community that assisted this person, and someone in the white community who just gently kind of removed the person's arm and kept going. So, we know that we have a long way to go in this country. We know that racism still exists. It has not gone away. And although we have come so far, we still have so much further to go. And there was a question about, did the hijacking occur on a MARTA bus? And no, it was not a MARTA bus, but it was a transit bus. Another listener said President Biden addressed gun safety and his administration's steps to reduce gun violence in a speech yesterday. Wow. And so that's what we're looking for. And so, all right. So we again, incredibly sad story. We've got a lot of work to do. And this is why we're highlighting the stories, is because we're coming up upon an election year and your vote matters. Your vote counts, and who you vote for counts. And we just want to ensure that we are putting the right person in office who is going to take our country to where it needs to be and really do the best that they can to fix some of these systemic issues that we are encountering in this country. So now we're going to talk about, for some, their favorite guy, and for some, their least favorite guy. Yes, none other than Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been acting strange to the point where the New York Post, or the Washington Post rather, did a whole story saying, what's going on? Is Donald Trump okay? So we're going to get into that. But following up the show yesterday and talking about Donald Trump's reactions, it would appear now that Donald Trump's claims about discrimination or claims about him being not treated lawfully or being persecuted, so to speak, that those claims have been discredited by the Hunter Biden verdict. And so throughout Donald Trump's trial in Manhattan, Trump often insisted he couldn't get a fair verdict in a city that votes mostly Democratic. But the thing is, Delaware is a blue state, and a jury just convicted the president's son, Hunter Biden. One juror told CNN on Tuesday that politics never came up in the deliberations. Jurors in the Trump trial have yet to speak, and it's possible because they have fears of being identified following the ex-president's intimidation tactics. And so we're going to get into this a little bit, because what we're going to talk about in just a minute is contrasting the reaction of Donald Trump to his conviction and his reaction to the justice system. And we're going to compare and contrast that to Biden's reaction. Okay. So now, had Hunter Biden been acquitted, Republicans most certainly would have argued that it was a biased jury. They would have been up in arms. They would have been talking about, again, it's a biased jury in a state, because New York State, where everyone knows the first family. But this guilty verdict kind of blew a huge hole in their political argument. So Joe Biden came to the office pledging to restore independence of the Justice Department following Trump's repeated efforts to employ its legal and investigative powers, almost like his own personal law firm, so to speak, during his term. He used the DOJ like his own personal, lawyers. But the former president has left no doubt that he'd do the same if he wins back the White House in November, and he would ignore DOJ's core mission statement of enforcing the law with independence and impartiality. That is what we've seen from Joe Biden in his response to his son's criminal activity and to the verdict. Trump has already vowed to prosecute Biden and his family and to, quote unquote, these are not my words, Trump said, to obliterate what he calls the deep state. And so he actually talks about this. If you remember last week, we were talking about the interview that Donald Trump did with Time Magazine, and he actually kind of gives an explanation of what the deep state is, and we'll try to pull that up for you during the show so we can kind of get a little bit of clarity on what Donald Trump meant by the deep state. And I remember reading some of it, and I'm going to tell you, it sounded like a hodgepodge of rhetoric to me. However, we'll get to that in just a moment. And so basically, as I said, the Hunter Biden verdict has contradicted Trump's rationale that, with his multiple legal defenses and his 4 criminal cases and his civil cases and, basically his entire presidential campaign, this false notion that he's a victim of a weaponized legal system by a Justice Department that exclusively targets Republicans. This is what Donald Trump has said. Well, what we've seen is that is not the case. Donald Trump was treated fairly. He was not being targeted, because if that was the case, well, then why would Biden have allowed his son not to be pardoned? He said he's not going to pardon his son. And why would he allow his son to potentially risk doing jail time? So much for weaponizing the Justice Department to go after just the enemies of the other side. This was said by Michael Zeldin, the former senior Justice Department official and federal prosecutor. He said this to CNN. He also said this is a testament to the fact the Justice Department under Attorney General Merrick Garland is trying its very best to steer straight down the middle, as it should, and bring people to trial that it thinks are worthy of prosecution. We're talking about neutrality here. And so I told you guys yesterday, I knew that the Republicans were going to have something to say. I knew that they were going to come back with something. They're basically saying that that there's more to this. And I believe we had a caller yesterday who was trying to highlight some of this, but the Republicans are basically saying, no, this is just a cover up. No, we're not happy with the guilty verdict because it's covering up more sinister crimes. And I believe they even refer to the Biden family as some type of a crime family. Very, very sensational, James. It's interesting. But as we've said, voters are going to have to make a choice. One of the things you're going to have to consider is what kind of person do you want in the Oval Office come January 2025? Is it the person who has consistently undermined our justice system, who has threatened to persecute his his nemesis or his enemies? And although Trump did say in the Time magazine interview that he was not going to go after Biden, he has been quite zealous in saying that he would. So, James, what are your thoughts about this? Because I know we kind of had some conflicting views yesterday during yesterday's show about the Republican, but what do you think about all this?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge you told me so. You said it was going to happen. And I said to myself, something that she was right. I am, it doesn't surprise me, but then again, I'd like to ask those of his supporters, what do you want? What do you all really want? He complained. I can't understand this to save my life. Donald Trump complained that, oh, y'all convicted me on 34 counts and you just slapped Joe's son with 3. A felony is a felony. Mm-hmm. The president of the United States' son, fairly judged, fairly had a defense, fairly prosecuted, judged by a jury of his peers, just like Mr. Trump. And in this case, the president did not do what Donald Trump did in his tenure, and that is he told his attorney general, stop the Mueller investigation. We don't want to hear it. I don't even know if the report got out. Who knows? I know it's there, but he stopped it. Bill Barr stopped this thing, and Bill Barr shut it down. Unlike Mr. Biden, our current president, who kept the special prosecutor that was prosecuting Hunter Biden, kept him on. Now, this is a person that worked for Donald Trump. He says, I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to be hateful like that. Eventually justice has to roll. I'm keeping you on as special prosecutor to prosecute my son. Now, I don't know, if I was president, I wouldn't have anybody prosecute my child. I'd probably say, hey, I might gave him a pardon. I don't know, or whatever. But let's look at the integrity of Mr. Biden. Why is he criticized for allowing this to happen? Oh, it's a slap on the wrist. So what is it that you all want? I hate to say it. I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were some intelligent people and that they had rational, and most of the GOP legislators are lawyers. And you mean to tell me that you're upset because the prosecution seemed like it was unbalanced? Well, Hunter didn't do what Donald Trump has done and is doing and still doing. We can just read the list, but I won't even go there. I wouldn't even go there. All I'm saying is it is time to make up a choice whether we're going to have a leader of this country that he said he was going to use the Justice Department and every tool that he has at his disposal to go after his political opponent. He said this. I didn't say it. He said it. The same thing that he's accusing the president of doing, and he's falsely accusing him of doing. Mr. Trump said, I'm going to do it. If I get back in office, I'm coming after the press. So me and you, Wisdom, we in trouble if he gets back in. I don't care. He can come after me. I got some, leave me alone, whatever. Then I'm a citizen. My Second Amendment rights and things might come in because he's threatening the livelihood and the way of life of Americans. He's telling you, this is how it's going to be. We're going to take these rights. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And, whether you like him or not, think about it. Look at what this man is trying to do. He's desperate. He's desperate.
Very.
He's desperate. He knows if he doesn't get into office, he knows that he's really going to have to pay the piper.
Absolutely. Well, hang on, guys. We just want to let you know.
Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration.
So I actually found Donald Trump's explanation of the Deep South. And so when he was interviewed by Time Magazine, the question was asked, Mr. President, you've talked a lot about your plan to obliterate the deep state. What exactly does that mean? And Trump's response is such. It means we want to get rid of bad people, people that have not done a good job in government. And we look at people like a company would look at people. When you buy a company, you go in and you look at it. How do you like the job? Job performance. They have job performance standards. And yeah, we would like to get rid of people that haven't done a good job. And there are plenty of them. So once again, we have Donald Trump's elementary response regarding what is deep state. Now, Democratic Republican Jamie Raskin highlighted the contrast between Trump and Biden. The Republicans are attacking our entire system of justice and the rule of law because they don't like the way one case came out. Whereas the son of the president of the United States is prosecuted, and I don't hear a single Democrat crying foul, the Maryland Democrat said. Yet, one lesson of the Trump era is that the truth rarely matters. The revealing of inconvenient facts never penetrates the echo chamber that dominates Republican politics and conservative media. So rather than being chastened by the collapse of the Trump persecution narrative and the successful application of the rule of law in a criminal trial, Trump supporters in Congress merely used the Biden verdict to conjure a new round of falsehoods and conspiracy theories. Again, James already admitted that I told him so. House Oversight Chairman James Comer said the Delaware trial was a step toward accountability, and I agree. But the Kentucky Republican warned that Justice Department officials were continuing to cover for the big guy, meaning Joe Biden. Comer his repeated accusations that the president had profited from his son's ethically questionable business operations in Ukraine and China while his father was vice president, despite the failure of his committee and the House GOP impeachment probe to find any such evidence. And so this is what some people have been saying on the streets, that, well, the Biden family have they've had some shady dealings, but once again, they did not find any evidence. And as I've said before, it's not always about what happened, it's about what you can prove. House Speaker Mike Johnson took a similar approach, stating that we will continue to demand accountability for the corrupt business dealings of the Biden family. He is a firm supporter of Trump, despite the ex-president's loss in a recent civil case that he found that he, his adult sons, and his organization had committed massive insurance and banking fraud. Okay. That was Mike Johnson. Stephen Miller, Trump's former White House domestic policy advisor, argued that the Justice Department had actually shown favoritism toward Hunter Biden by not charging him with 50 felonies over foreign influence peddling. The department should, quote unquote, tell him his only way out of life in prison is to testify against the big guy. Wow. This is what was tweeted on Twitter. Or I should say X, formerly known as Twitter. So, yeah, I figured that the Republicans would try to come up with something to try to discredit Joe Biden, but the numbers don't lie. And so far, experts are saying that what happened with Hunter Biden really doesn't have much of a bearing on the on how they're going to vote come November. And so we'll just have to wait and see. Got a few people listening. One said the Bidens were investigated during the Trump administration 8 years ago. There's no findings of wrongdoing. Another listener said, yep, that's correct. The difference is that, to my knowledge, not one Democrat is publicly supporting those in the party that have been accused of misdoing. Trump, with a question mark. His sycophants will, they would lose their lives for him, so to speak. Okay, so it sounds like there are some out there that have a messiah complex when it comes to Donald Trump. Republicans want to find anything on President Biden to justify Trump's criminal offenses, said another listener. And finally, we've got Trump should be nowhere near the White House ever again. As a convicted felon, he's banned from many countries, including Canada. He should also be banned from D.C., in my opinion. James, what do you think about that? That's an interesting concept. So there are a number of countries that ban convicted felons. They don't care that you're a former president. However, former President Donald Trump is still allowed to have free reign within our country. Are there certain areas, i.e. Washington, D.C. or the White House, that he should be banned from as a convicted felon?
Well, our listener, quite excellent fact-finding and doing research. There are countries that do bar convicted felons from entering into their territories. I don't think that they anticipated that there's a possibility of a president of the United States being a convicted felon leading our country. I don't think that and I think it's really mesmerizing. What are you going to do? These are our Canada's our ally, our real next door neighbor upstairs. We had those triplexes, they call them. Somebody's in the middle, somebody's on the top, somebody's on the bottom, and they're up at the top. Mexico's at the bottom, and but our neighbor at the top, our top ally that's connected to Great Britain, says you can't even come over there. How would that look with foreign relations? Another thing that I wanted to bring out, and even though you told me so, you did tell me so, I don't feel bad because you were right. I mean, I look like I got egg on my face, so I'll just wash my face.
No, you don't.
But check this out, though. Please help me out. He fired the FBI, Trump. He fired the FBI director who was leading the investigation into his misgivings. He barred, how many attorney generals have he had, and acting attorney generals that he's had to do his bidding? That's wild to me. Look at this, folks. I keep asking people, look at it. Look at what's going on. I mean, the very persons that overseen the probe and he directed the White House counsel to seek termination of Robert Mueller, who was trying to investigate to find out what he was doing with Russia with the back channels. Look at the things that are going on. That you're a criminal and you got mad, or these, I can't understand it to save my life. How are you going to get mad? My child abused drugs and he lied on the form. Got caught, he's going to pay that penalty. Versus Donald Trump being,
what about versus his son-in-law? What about versus his son-in-law? Jared Kushner, he was never investigated for the $2 billion that he received from Saudi Arabia. What about that?
Yeah.
We're running out of time today. We'll get into it tomorrow. But Donald Trump has definitely said. I did. Donald Trump has definitely he has said things, he has done things that leads many to believe that he is not of a sound mind. One of our listeners said that Trump needs to see a behavioral health specialist because he makes statements such as, if I don't get reelected, things will happen. And so to the point where, as I said, the Washington Post did a whole article on Trump titled, "Is Donald Trump Okay?" because of all of his nonsensical rhetoric during his last Trump rally. He's talking about hypothetically being electrocuted. He's talking about electric boats, and if the boat sinks, will he get electrocuted? I mean, it just makes you think that he is not mentally well. Even looking at his responses during the Time magazine. If I didn't tell you that it was Donald Trump that made those responses, what grade level would you assume the person answering those questions reached? What was the highest grade level would you think that the person answering those questions reached? What do you think?
I'm not going to insult people that are not well learned, but I ain't even going to go there because it's horrifying. Wisdom is horrifying.
I would have thought that it was someone in elementary, maybe potentially high school, but I would not have thought that this was a former president and someone who has someone. One of our listeners said pre-K. Oh, shout out to all the elementary school and high schoolers. Oh my goodness, but yeah, there's a clear indication that the man is not mentally well. As I said, we'll get into it a little bit deeper because what I believe happened during this rally is that the teleprompter went out, or Donald Trump decided to completely disregard the teleprompter. And we know what happens when Donald Trump goes off script. When he goes off script, he goes way, way, way off script. And again, he just, what he was saying wasn't even making sense. Even if he was nervous, even if he didn't have his cards in front of him, he didn't know what to say. He's at a pep rally. He's supposed to be talking about his upcoming campaign and some of the things that he wants to do to enhance the country, change the country, improve the country. You know, his slogan was "Make America Great Again." He could have just left it at "Make America Great." I would have just stopped there. Because in my opinion, I don't think the history that he's referring to highlights America at its best, you know. But and that's interesting. What is his slogan? What is his slogan going to be? If it was "Make America Great Again," what is he shooting for the upcoming election? What is his new slogan going to be? I'm curious. But the point is, Donald Trump can't hold a conversation. He has difficulty answering questions. He appears to have what looks like attention deficit disorder in terms of focusing on the conversation. And there are many who Donald Trump can do no wrong. And so very interesting. We will definitely be diving more into that and more on tomorrow. But we have a number of people listening. Thank you so much. You're tuned into 92.7 WKRA-FM Radio, and we want to hear your thoughts. Give us your opinion. Call in and tell us what you think about what's going on with Donald Trump, what's going on around the city of Atlanta. We want to know your thoughts. Tell us what you're thinking. We do value everyone's opinion, and we do recognize that your opinion may be different from ours. And so definitely want to hear what you're thinking. One of our listeners said he isn't running to make this country great. He's running to stay out of prison. Wow. That's a really strong statement. That's a strong statement. So he isn't necessarily running because he cares about the country, but he's running to stay out of prison. Well, there are many who believe that when he ran the first time, it wasn't to change the country. It wasn't to make the country great again. It was to make money, because that is what Donald Trump typically, what he focuses on, in my opinion. And this is just my opinion. It may not be reflective of the radio station's opinion, but I believe that he looked at the presidency as a business transaction or as a company. The same way you heard how he described the deep state, that there are bad people out there. Put it up on the screen one more time. There are bad people. We want to get rid of bad people. He says, it's like a company. We look at people like a company. Well, Donald Trump ran this country like he was running a company, not so much like a president. Those are just my thoughts. Another listener said he told his supporters that he doesn't care about them. He just wants their vote. Correct. I do remember reading that. And he also wants retribution. Wow. So for those who stand by Donald Trump, for those who, and I wish we had someone who is Republican, who is planning to run for Donald Trump, because I would love to hear their thoughts on hearing him say, I don't really care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care what party you're from. I know that as a voter, that's the last thing that I want to hear. The last thing that I want to hear is that you don't care about me. You just want my vote. Because what does that mean? James, what does that mean? What does that mean for the history, or for the future rather, of our country, to have someone in office who doesn't care about us? They only care about our vote. So I only care about being elected president. And after that, then what?
Oh, somebody's listening to him. Millions are listening to him. Millions are mesmerized and hoodwinked and bamboozled and led astray. And they, I can't speak for them. You have a right to, like as we say, you have a right to vote for who you want. But think about what he said to these people in this crowd. Now, I don't expect the president to talk like this. This is amazing. He says the S word and the F word, and I don't care about these people. And then he started talking about the event workers, the people that have prepared the stage, and all the bunning and all the lies, lying posters that are all around. This guy is unhinged. But then again, people were waiting in the heat. Did you
Yes,
remember? Did
yes.
you hear about that? I'm
He
waiting
held a rally in
hours
a
and
hundred
hours
degrees.
and
But remember,
hours.
but
Yeah,
remember, yes, so he held a rally in 100+ degree weather. But remember what he said: I don't care about you. I just want your vote.
he sure said that. That's what he said. You tell
Yeah.
me that? Oh, I don't care about you. I just want you to vote. And these people, there are people that say, I don't care what he does. I'm going to vote. Something is wrong. And I'm amazed, but then I'm not amazed. Listen, as we say and as we encourage, don't just sit at home this November. I don't care if this person was declared any other party, who cares? I cannot vote for somebody like that, knowing that they're unhinged. He's crazy, allegedly, uh,
Hmm.
dementia, allegedly, just unhinged, and he don't care. And he's telling you, "I'm going to do these things." He's telling us exactly what he's going to do. If he gets in there, he's not coming out that White House. If he gets in there again, he will do everything that he can, even if it's a declaration of martial law on the country forever, to stay in there, to keep from going to the federal pen. I agree with our listener. He'll do it. He'll do anything. And God help us, this man has his hands on the nuclear codes, for God's sake. When he was in there, I was nervous. Will he get
Hmm.
mad or have a tantrum, or somebody didn't bring him a Big Mac, allegedly, with
He's
extra sauce, allegedly, and he get mad and shoot McDonald's restaurant? See,
he
you
is
can.
he's a loose cannon. One of our listeners said practically his whole ex-cabinet and campaign staff are now convicted felons. You are the company you keep. Well said. It is true. Birds of a feather flock together. And who is going to be his cabinet? Many of those people are sitting in a jail cell, or are still having to deal with the criminal trial related to what happened during his term. Another listener said, don't forget about the people who nearly froze to death in the winter leaving one of his rallies. Forgot about that one. He wants an opportunity to cage people, deport people, have generals unalived, etc. He wants Russia in the US. He wants to be Putin. He wants to be Putin. Yeah.
Wow.
I can't argue. I can't argue with that, because he said it. He said that this is a part of his agenda. If you're not aware, but before you go to the polls, educate yourself. Look up Project 2025. Also, as we get into more and more campaigns, listen to all of the candidates, make an informed decision. Again, think about who you want to put in office. There is no perfect candidate. I don't think anyone has a perfect record or clean slate. But remember, for those who use the argument that, Biden comes from a crime family and what his son did and these things, there wasn't evidence found, but there was plenty of evidence found on Donald Trump. There are those who respect Donald Trump because they feel like what you see is what you get. He doesn't have a hidden agenda. He's a liar, and they know that he's a liar. He will potentially hire people to do work and not pay them. They know that he's a loose cannon. They know that. And there are some people that say, well, you know, what you see is what you get. I'd rather vote that way because at least I know exactly what to expect, rather than to deal with the candidate who promises all of these things and then is not able to make good on all of those promises. But for me, it's really about their agenda and at least what they're trying to do. And that starts with an understanding of our government, an understanding of international policy, an understanding of our justice system, and so forth. And I'm not confident that Donald Trump has that he can hold that office. It's like a job interview, right? I look at it when we are electing our next president. I do agree with Donald Trump when he says sometimes you have to look at it like a company. Okay, you are the company. You have a position open. It's a very high position. It's a position that's going to put a great amount of decision-making power in the hands of this person, of the candidate. And the campaign trail is a perpetual interview. Think about what you want in your next president. What are you looking for? What do you value in terms of what they're going to bring to the table? How are they going to help enhance this country? Potentially put things in place that will enhance your life, enhance your safety, enhance your finances, deal with some of the issues we have in this country with equality. What is important to you? And which candidate do you believe is going to do the better job in helping to get there? That's what I'm asking you to consider. James, final thoughts.
You told me so.
I promise you, I will live it down. I'm just going to gloat for maybe another 24 hours, but by tomorrow, I promise you. But yes, I did tell you so. And as I said, we're going to this Washington Post article asking if Donald Trump was okay was quite comical. We're going to get into just a little bit of that, and then we'll have some more stories. We're getting a little bit into some local news, and so contact us. Let us know. Leave a comment. Leave a comment under the live stream on YouTube if there's a topic that's important that you want us to cover. If there's some news that you hear, let us know. And Wisdom's daughter and James Mack, your man on the street, we will be on it. We will do the research and we will bring you the story. Another listener has said Biden has been in politics and in Washington, D.C. since he was 29 years old. He has demonstrated what he wants to do if reelected. And again, that is something to consider, right? When we're looking at candidates for positions, especially what we call C-suite positions, you're looking to hire a CEO of your company or chief operating officer maybe of the company, as president, whatever. You're looking to hire someone in a very high position. You're going to consider their experience and how many years they have in politics. And it just doesn't hold up. You're talking about 4 years experience versus, I don't know how old Biden is. Biden has got to be 80 something. So let's just round it off and say he's got over 50 years of experience in politics. That's got to mean something. Got to mean something. And so another listener said, I am thoroughly upset with Biden because of his blind support of Israel's issue that's happening over there. But Trump is infinitely worse. Absolutely. Sometimes you've got to choose the lesser of two evils. And I'm not necessarily calling Donald Trump or Biden evil. I'm just saying, when you have those resumes on the table, you got to pick whoever has the best resume. And so that is how I'm approaching this upcoming election. I'm not sure how you're approaching the upcoming election, but James Mack, your man on the street, will be covering a lot of these events, and there will be more to come on that. And we're really excited for what's to come. We're really excited for what's to come. So, all right, James, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'll let you give us your final thoughts.
See, you still have me crying. I want people to please be informed and please be aware that your vote, I know people say this all the time during election time, Your vote means something every election, whether it's your local elections, uh, whether you're voting for school board or whatever the case, your mayors, your aldermen. It starts, all politics is local. Get with your neighbors, get with some people and your friends, have a discussion about what's really going on and what's really at stake. I'm not saying either way it goes that whomever is perfect or whatever the case may be, or might even be the best person. Hey, some people saying that the president is too old to be there. I mean, we all have our opinions, but when we really look at what's at stake, please make a conscientious decision. If there are people that live in your house, tell them to register to vote. Just don't register, but get out and vote. Get together and let's make a difference. We can keep our country, although imperfect as it is, and our systems are imperfect, and the things that are going on, we can't lose what we have throwing it away, trying to get something new. And I don't want to try what he has new. This man's trying to stay out of prison. He's mad because he has all these counts that he has been found guilty of. Well, you did them. You did those. And the jury of your peers came and said, hey, the very Constitution that you swore to uphold and the systems of government and the three tiers of government, the legislative and the executive and the judicial, is still working. We need to keep that in place, folks. I can say a lot about America. I can say a lot about what's going on. But by God, I don't want to live anywhere else but here. And I just encourage you to continue to engage and to continue to talk about the issues that are going on. And don't get mad. Don't even boo. We need to vote.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, we thank you so much for listening and tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.
You're listening to Your Man on the Street with Wisdom's Daughter and James Mack on 92.7 WKRA-FM, your station for information and inspiration.